So you've decided to get into Cities Skylines, but you're not quite sure what it's about or how to play longer than 10 minutes without running out of money and abandoning houses everywhere. You search YouTube and all you can find are advanced tips or most efficient starting design, but those are above your level. You've come to the right spot, my friend. I will show you the actual basics of the game. I will explain like you are 5. This is part 1. Hello world, my name's Toadie, and this is my super ultra basic tutorial for Cities Skyline. This is not advanced tips on road design to get the most efficient traffic. This is not how to grow your city to X population in the shortest amount of time. This is Cities Skylines for Dummies. This video is part 1, so if you are just starting out your journey, you're in the right spot. Parts 2 and 3 will be here soon. If they are already posted, I will put them in the description of this video. Cities Skylines is a simulation game where you build a city from 0 people living into it to however many people live in it when you're done. You place your own road layouts, you choose what type of buildings go where, what type of services people get, and what type of recreation they can find around them. I'll explain more as we go on, but first, let's just get into the game. This screen will be the first thing that you see. There's really not much that you need to do in here. In order to show you how to play the game, I'm going to play vanilla, completely vanilla, no mods. Later on in your life, if you're playing on PC, you can go to the Steam workshop and add mods and assets, but that's not what we're doing today. There are some options that you can make sure that you have turned on to maybe help your beginner game. You will want to keep show in-game guide pop-ups on just so you can read them. It's smart to have autosave turned on, and I like to have the notifications turned on for any of the DLCs that you may have purchased, at least while you're getting started, so you can keep track of what's going on in your city. That's it for the options though. Everything else is absolutely personal preference. To start a new game, guess what guys, you click the new game button. These icons beside the map names just show which DLC they are from. Let's pick a very base game map. As I click through them, you can see things changing over here, right? For this demonstration, we will use green plains, and I'll just explain very briefly what these are. These natural resources are exactly what you think they are. They're resources that are in the ground or on the map that are available for some industry, some work that your citizens will be able to do. More light blue on the bar means there's more of this available on the map. Outside connections means how people from the outside world can get into your city. If you hover over them, you can see what each of them are. We have highway, train, ship, and air. This map allows people to come in from all 4 options. As an example, 2 rivers down here, there's no ship connections to the outside world, so you won't have any tourists or people coming in via ships. Suitable area for building means what percentage of the map is easy to build on or capable of being built on. 74% is pretty high. To give you some comparison, Cliffside Bay here only has 53%. These base themes and custom map theme aren't really important for beginning the game, they're just about visuals. Let's name our city CS for Dummies. Left-hand traffic would be something that people who live in the UK or other countries that drive on the left side of the road would click. I'm Canadian. This is absolutely terrifying for me. Let's just dive in and get ready to play our new city. It's normal for this loading screen to take a little while sometimes. Just let it be and it will load. We are in. Are you ready to start playing Cities Skylines? No? Okay, well that's what I'm here for. First things first, you will have these pop-ups come up as you play through the game. I suggest that you do take the time to read them because they will reaffirm what I'm teaching you, but for now I will be closing them as they pop up. Next, some basic movement controls. Move your mouse, it moves the arrow. WSAD on your keyboard goes forward and backwards and left and right, just like you're used to. The scroll wheel on your mouse zooms out and zooms in. And if you hold down the scroll wheel or your third mouse button, and you move the camera around, it moves like this in a way that is better if you try it than me trying to describe it. When you zoom out, you'll see something along these lines. These dotted lines represent the area that you are able to build in. As your city expands and you have more people moving in, you can purchase more space to build in. we'll get there. For now, you'll always have one road connection into your starting square, and you might have other connections like the train. In this map, we do not, and we only care about the roads to start. Before we actually start building a city, we should talk about the point of this game. What is the point of playing Cities Skylines? Cities Skylines is whatever you make it to be. I like making pretty cities that are visually appealing while mostly functional. Some people recreate real-world cities one for one. Some people just want to build the biggest city with as many people in it as possible. How you end up playing your city will grow on you, you'll figure it out. But to start, the game does offer you some basic goals. Watch my mouse in the bottom left-hand corner. There is this Milestones button. Click it. And here is how we are going to be basing our structure. Today, I'm going to get you to the first milestone of Little Hamlet. Each milestone is based on population, and those numbers differ slightly just based on the map that you're playing on and how much buildable area there is. As we click through, you'll see that there are many milestones, and each milestone you unlock new things. And we will discuss those more in the next episode. We just need to get you on your feet first. As we click through, you'll see that the last milestone that the game provides you is Megalopolis. This is where we're going to end up. For now, let's build a city. Let's zoom in and focus closer to our connection to the highway. Next, please draw your attention down here to the GUI where you'll see some blacked out options. More of these options will become available as your game progresses, but it's worth noting that your citizens need each of these to stay happy and stay in your city. If they don't have these as they become available, your citizens will abandon their houses and they'll leave, and you'll eventually, I guess, fail the game. Right now, our only option is roads. Let's click on it, and then you have these options pop up. Same thing, the black ones are options that you will unlock as you go along, and right now I'm scrolling with my mouse wheel just to look through them. For each of these pop-ups, there's also often tabs here up at the top, and they show you different types of what you've just clicked on. So we're looking at roads in general, and here are the more specific road items. So we have small roads, medium, large, highways, and some other things that we will get to in the future. For now, to be able to unlock anything else, we need to place one road. A very common tactic for starting a new city is to just place the smallest road possible. How do you place a road? Click on this guy. And then you left click once anywhere on your map for now. So I've left clicked once. And now as I move my mouse around, I'm not clicking anymore. This line comes up. That blue line shows you where your road is going to go. So I'm going to draw the smallest one possible. See how I can draw it very long or very small. Note the construction cost. As I go to build a bigger road, it costs more. Pretty logical, right? But that introduces to us the concept of money. We'll get to that in a second. Coming back, let's just draw this $40, 40 simoleon, 40 euro road. And look, some things changed. I drew that road by left clicking again, by the way. Now, however, if I move my mouse around, it wants me to continue drawing a road. If you want to get out of this, you can either press escape on your keyboard or you can right click, and right click will exit the interface. Let's look at what we've unlocked. We've unlocked one-way roads. We've unlocked a gravel road and probably some others up here as well. We've also unlocked some other very important things, however. Zoning is how you tell the game where you want people to build buildings. Available to us right now are a residential zone for people to live in, commercial zones for people to work in or visit to get food or other goods, and industrial zone for people to work in to produce goods. People that live in the residential zones will go to work at the commercial and the industrial zones, and they will also go to consume goods at the commercial zones. The industry zones will ship their goods to the commercial zones in order for those commercial zones to sell their goods to the residents. This guy on the right, this is just to de-zone something, so like deleting the zone. You can draw this zone in only attached to a road. So before we talk more about them, let's put some roads down. In order to put new roads down though, we need to get rid of this one. It's in our way. On the bottom right of your screen, you'll see a bulldozer, and it does just that. It bulldozes things, which means delete them. You can either click it, or you can press B on your keyboard as a shortcut, and anything that you want to delete, you hover over and it highlights blue. And because we have the game paused, it will refund us 30 of the $40 that we spent to build the road. The more time that passes between when you build something and when you delete it, the less money you will get back. To bulldoze something, left click it with the mouse once it's highlighted, and it's gone. To exit the bulldozer mode, press B on your keyboard again, or click down here in the bottom right again. See this horizontal line coming up and down? That's the indication that you're in bulldozer mode. While we're paying attention to the edges of the screen, take a look at this red line. This indicates that the game is paused, along with, you know, nothing moving. And if you're wanting to pause the game or unpause the game, it's simply spacebar. Okay, let's build some roads. We've already built a standalone road. Well, that doesn't help when people need to drive into the city from the outside, does it? When we have the road tab open, you can see these arrows showing up on the highway roads. Those indicate that these are one-ways, and they indicate the direction that the traffic flows. Why don't we add some one-way roads to the one-way highway roads that already exist, just to tidy these up and get them ready to meet our city's, let's say, main road. We're going to click on the one-way, and we're going to bring our mouse over here. And do you see how the mouse appears to be kind of snapping to certain areas of the roads? Those areas, indicated by the circles or the end of the road, are called nodes. You'll hear this terminology used a lot when playing Cities Skylines. Nodes are just a point in the road. The area in between two nodes, so this area, is called a segment. Let's start. Snapped onto this node, press left click on our mouse, and drag down to about here. Left click again, and it's built. Now, I need to right click to get out of this because I don't want to build another road. Right click. And do you see how, as I move around now, these blue dotted lines show up? That's indicating where you can snap to for your next roads. And it's pretty logical to start where this road and this road meet up, right? So let's start here, left click, come to this road, snap to it, left click, and it joins up. So now these two are even and they're ready to connect to our main road. Now these small roads have basically 2 lanes each, one going in each direction in this case, and then the 2 going in one direction. So for our more main road, we're gonna move just up to a medium road because we don't want anything too crazy, and that's a later reason why. And we're gonna choose our 4-lane road, basic 4-lane road. Click on it, and I'm going to start by connecting this guy to this guy. And then I'm just gonna build, let's say, this far over here and this far over here. That's it for now. You'll notice one theme through this beginning video is that we want to keep everything small and compact because it will save us money, which is our biggest limiting factor right now. Speaking of which, I think it's important to build these first few steps with the game paused, because as you build things in your city, like roads or electricity, when time is passing, those things cost money per time. Do you see where it says upkeep 80 cents per week per cell? That means as time goes on, we're spending money maintaining this road, and if we don't have to do that at the very beginning, it's important that we don't do so. Next, do you see this grid showing up beside the roads? That is where we do the zoning that I mentioned earlier. So just as a very quick example, when I hover over, you can see that it will allow me to paint the green in there, but we're not going to do that quite yet. We still need to build more roads to zone on, and let me explain to you why. We know that residential is where people live, and there's nothing exciting for me to tell you about that yet. Commercial zones, along with especially the high density commercial zones, they produce sound and noise when you build them. Noise is not an extremely important factor in the game, but it's just something to remember a little bit later on. Industry, however, produces a factor of pollution, and that is important right now. Pollution needs to be considered for 2 main things. For one, You don't want your industry immediately next to your residential, because the people that will live here will be poisoned essentially by the pollution that this industry makes. So that is a no-no. So that means we need to build our industry away from our residential. Pollution also comes into play when we start getting into placing water down. We'll get to that, I promise. And in case you're wondering the way that I deleted this residential, you can either right click anywhere and drag and let go and it dezones it, or you can use this tool and just left click it. A very common pattern for zoning that you will see is residential, commercial, industry. So that's residential and industry away from each other with commercial separating them. That's very common and an easy go-to. We need to have a lot more than this zoned though, so that means we need more space. However, not too much space so that we don't run out of money. I'm going to take some time now to build what I think is a reasonable road layout for a beginning city, and a reasonable size as well. With a map like this, I'm going to plan to have my first industry over here and my first residential and commercial kind of take up this little area. This is about as long as I would want any first main street to be. You can see it costs $4,440, so in and around that size, and you'll probably be pretty safe. For the roads coming off of it though, I'm going to come back to this 2-lane road, and let's get some things down for places for people to live. As I'm building these, note that I am instinctually just going to these circles, the nodes, when I build off of this main road. And what that is doing conveniently is it's kind of maximizing our grid space. Don't feel like you have to do this, but that's generally how I'm choosing where to build. I'm also going to do a few roads off this way to get our first industry in, and a couple down here as well. This is as big as I'm comfortable building to start. Now, I don't want to start zoning in right away because these people that I want to live here don't have what they need yet in order to live. They need electricity and they need water. Let's start with electricity. When you open the tab, you have some options. We'll use power lines in a second, but we need buildings that produce electricity first. The two options that are open to us are windmills and coal power plants. Take a look at the pop-up for the coal power plant. It costs so much per week and it costs so much to plop down. On the right-hand side though, it shows you the pollution that it produces and the noise pollution that it produces. Pollution's the more important of the two, but they're both factors. And on the bottom right, you can see the power output. Now compare that to the wind turbine and you see the difference. The wind turbine won't create any pollution, which is really great, but it produces so much less power. So for today's example, we're going to use the coal power plant. Because it produces pollution, we're going to place it in the industrial area. Now, as I hover over here, do you see the purple circle around it? That circle is where the pollution will affect. So if I were to build houses within that area, those people would get sick and they would leave or die. Placing down a building, you have to do so beside a road, and you can see it snaps to the road. Let's place this power plant down up here, and you just left click to place it. Now, do you see that blue area that came around it? That is electricity. We eventually want houses over here, but they need electricity, and that blue doesn't reach over here. The way that we get the blue electricity to reach over here is with these power lines. You just need to place your first one within the original blue area, left click once, and come over to where you want the power to travel to. Once we start building houses, I'll show you why, but for now, trust that you only need to get it in the general area and it will spread through the houses through the zoning. I'll show you in a quick sec. One power plant is definitely enough to power your little starter town. Next, your citizens need water. Water and sewage is an in and out system. So you need to bring water into your city via certain assets, and you need to pump water out of your city in the form of sewage via other assets. Water can be brought into your city either by pumping it up out of a river or an ocean, or by bringing it out of a water tower that can be placed essentially anywhere. To be able to best teach you the basics of the game, we're going to use the water pumping station. So when I click on it, notice this river becomes blue, so it's showing that it's water, and it has these arrows. These arrows are the direction of water flow, and that's very important. So water will come in through this pumping station. Our city will use it and turn it into waste, and then need to pump it out. Come down to this river. You don't want your waste to be dumped out here, only to travel downstream into where you're picking up water, because then you're picking up waste. You're literally picking up poop and feeding it to your citizens. You don't want that. So when you're taking water in and dumping it back out in the same general body of water, pay very close attention to the arrows. You want the water pumping to be up here so that the arrows flow away from it, so that the water flows away from it. As I move the pumping station around, it snaps to the river edges and you just left click to place. Great, that's water in. Now we need water out. I'm going to do the simple water drain pipe, and I'm just going to keep it far enough away from this guy so that if I did it right here, that would be bad. This guy would suck up the waste, even though it eventually goes downstream. It kind of puddles around the drain first, right? So I'm going to place it down here so it's far enough away that it doesn't affect the water in, but it's not so far away that we have to spend a lot of money moving the water. That's right, we need to move the water via piping. Sort of similar to how the electricity worked with the power lines, we need to move the water through the city via these pipes. And we'll start by connecting these two first. As you move close to it, it'll snap to the asset, left click once, and see it snaps to the other asset again, and left click again. There's your first water pipe. That blue area around it is the area that will be covered for water. But we don't need this area covered. We just need these guys connected. Now, we should come over here and get this area covered. Many people lay out their piping cleanly, beautifully. For the sake of this tutorial, we're just gonna put these down to be functional. So I'm gonna come all the way over here, left click once. I'm going to right click to exit, and I'm going to draw enough lines down here so that all of my area that I want to build in is covered. Toadie from the future bringing you one last water tip. If you're going to have your water source that comes into the city be a water tower, don't put a water tower right next to buildings that produce pollution. Remember this coal power plant and it produces pollution? If we were to put this water tower right here, it would be soaking water up out of the ground that is polluted and feeding that polluted water to your civilians, making them sick, causing them to leave, causing them to die. Great, so you see all of that blue? Now everyone in here is covered for water, except these guys need power as well to operate. Buildings in this game need power to operate. So how do we carry power down here, guys? Do you remember? We come back to our electricity tab, we get our power line, and we can take power from this line and we can bring it over here. I'm going to right click again to get out of this because that blue is where power is being carried, and I'm going to come out the other side of it, and I'm just going to come within this blue. Now let's press escape to get out of this awful white screen, and we're ready to start zoning. So I just put down a bunch of residential and commercial however much I want, right? Wrong. Look down here. There are actually 3 bars here, and you'll see all 3 of them in a second. The leftmost is green, tied into the residential. The middle one will be blue, and that's tied into the commercial needs, and the rightmost will be orange, and that's tied into the industry need. You'll notice I said need. The higher the bar is, the more your city needs that type of zoning. When you're beginning the game brand new, your city needs only residential. It needs people to live here. So let's zone some in. Looking at these 4 buttons over here, think of these as paintbrushes, like you would use in MS Paint. This one is fill. So if I hover over, it takes kind of all of an available grid. And if I were to left click, it would fill all of that in. The second one makes you draw the area you want yourself. So I start in a corner, I hold left click, and I fill as much as I want. And it can cross roads like this, so I could do this if I wanted. The next 2 are like a little paintbrush, small and large, and if I just left click, it paints it in like that, or if I go for the large brush, it paints it in like this. You'll figure out which ones you're more comfortable with. It doesn't really matter. For this tutorial, I'm going to use the large brush and we're going to paint in our first houses. Remember when I said that you don't have to carry the power lines down like this? Here's why. When you paint your first houses, paint them near power lines, because this house here will pick up power from that power line, and once it's built, it will carry power over to these houses here. Electricity jumps from building to building as long as they're close enough. So we're going to paint in this area first and let these people move in. Are you ready to unpause? The last thing, we started the city with, I think it was $70,000. We're down to 27 and some change. If you're building along with me and you're around that amount of money, you're probably in a pretty good spot. Let's unpause and see what happens. I will press the space bar and we can watch what happens. Now the game has 3 speeds of play. Down here, bottom left, we are currently running in 1 speed. You can go to 2 speed by pressing the number 2, or 3 speed by pressing the number 3, or back down to 1 by pressing 1. And that's where we'll stay. This is what buildings look like as they move in. And I think it's fun to watch them build up their little houses. You can see our demand for residential is gone down slightly, but we certainly need more. Let's zoom back out a little bit and let's paint in some more residential zoning. You can see as we paint, even people are moving in. Now, as time passes in game, typically the game will go from day to night. What I'm going to do is press escape, which brings us to our menu. I'm going to go into options and I'm actually going to turn use day night cycle off, and that will keep us in permanent visual day, although for our sims, day night will continue to happen. Keep watching the bottom left for the demand meter, and you see the residential need is going down because we're bringing residents in, but now they want somewhere to work and shop. So why don't we start zoning some commercial as well? Let's zoom out a little and we'll put some shops along this road. Go to our zoning, click on the blue commercial zone, and I'm going to use the marquee tool this time instead, just a personal preference. And I'll show you something with the zoning. I'm going to actually zone like this, and I'm not going to bring in this last row of grid. The reason I'm doing that is so that when these shops build in, they only attach to this side road where the zoning meets the road, and they won't build along this main road. This is a really, really simple traffic tip. The purpose of this main road is to bring cars into the city along the main road and off onto these side roads where they then can go into the buildings that they want to go into, be them houses or residential. If you have a lot of houses and commercial built onto the main road like this, cars will take their time turning into these driveways and they will hold up the cars behind them. When you're in a town this small, it really doesn't matter, but it's just a force of habit for me to mark the zoning like that. Let's look at our demand meter some more. We need a good amount more commercial, and we also need some industry. Let's bring the commercial along this road as well. And over here is where we're going to put our industry, because remember, we want the pollution to stay away from the residents. Let's zone a little bit of industry. Again, I'm going to keep it from zoning onto the main road, and I'm just going to zone it like that. Let's watch these guys move in. See down here our money. This red money indicates either an income if it were in fact green, or a deficit each week. So right now we are spending money every week to operate our city. If we continue like that and our bank balance goes well below zero, we will hit bankruptcy. It's important to be finicky with money for these first few steps, like only building the roads that you need and not building your water pumps so far away, so that we can work to bring this number to a positive. You'll always start as a negative, don't stress about that, but we're slowly getting it there into a positive. One thing that helps make it a positive is industry, as industry brings us income. So let's build some more roads. I'm going to continue this industry road, and I want to come down here, but it says out of city limits. That's that dotted line that I was talking about. So instead, I'm going to just move over a little bit. I'm going to come down at a 90-degree angle and keep it fairly small. And then I'm going to press B to go to bulldozer, and I'm just going to delete that little knob just to keep it clean and tidy. Come back to small roads and build some roads off of this main one for our industry. And finally, zone in the industry itself, and I'm going to do that. We also have a little bit of a residential demand. Let's just take care of that right away. There we go. Remember when I said that electricity jumped between houses? Let's look at the electricity tab and see this blue line. It's jumping between the houses. I'm going to be curious. There, it does connect. So the electricity hopped over this road, so we don't need to build any more power lines. And if you can build as few power lines as possible during the beginning steps, you'll know that you're keeping your city small enough so that you're probably not very likely to go bankrupt. Bottom left, you can see our milestones button is turning green. The green area indicates how far away you are from your next milestone. If you click on it, you can see it this way as well. We're well on our way to 500 people. Oh, remember how we built these roads here? They're now showing a problem indicator, which is this little bubble that's coming up. This problem indicator shows that they need water. And so we just need to build more water piping over here to carry the water that we've already brought into the city over to them. So let me just put these down the exact same way I did the other ones. And now the blue area covers them, so they're covered. See how the bubbles start to go away as time passes. This is a good time to look top left at these bars. This is how much water is being brought into your city, and this is how much water is being processed and put out of your city. You want your arrows to always stay in the green part. As we move on, we'll take a look at when the arrows hit the yellow and the red. That's future us problem though. If you click on the electricity, it's the same indicators. So we have plenty of electricity to provide for the city. We are producing 40 megawatts and currently we are only consuming 7. I'm going to pause really quick for a second here because I don't want to hit that last milestone before I explain this to you. Our last icon that's lit up down here is the economy icon. Let's click on it and it brings this up. There's a lot going on this screen. For this episode and maybe even next episode, we're going to be ignoring this bottom half completely. Don't worry about it yet. Up top, there are 3 tabs. The only tab we have access to right now is the budget tab. Each row indicates a service for the city. So we have road maintenance, we have electricity, and we have water, sewage, and heating if you're playing on a snowfall map. On the right-hand side, you'll see how much money we are spending on that service every week. And you can move these sliders to the left or the right to spend less money every week. Remember how I showed you with the electricity consumption up here, we're producing way more than our city needs. If you were in a tight spot for money, down here with the weekly income, you could come to the economy tab and let's produce about 75% of the electricity that we previously were. As I unpause, you'll see this number eventually come down, and you'll also see our electricity production jump from 40 to 22. So now we're only spending this much money and we're producing less electricity. If you tinker around with these at the beginning, just make sure you don't forget about them. But they're a great way to save money at the very beginning of the game when you're producing too much of something with only one building. We're getting another problem icon over here. If you don't know what this icon means, click on the building that has it and it will tell you. We don't have enough people to work here. And that lines up with our demand meter where we need more zoning for people to move in. I'm going to pause the city one last time and let's build some more roads out this way. And this time I'm going to start connecting them together like so. And we can zone in the last of our residential over here. Let's unpause and watch these people move in. The number of citizens that we have in our city is slowly getting up there. It's almost at 500. I think we're about to reach our first milestone. And when you reach a milestone, it will pop up. Congratulations, everybody. We've made it to Little Hamlet. We've reached a population of 500, and we've learned the absolute basics of this game. I'm going to end this part of the tutorial here. In the next part, we will go over what happens when you unlock these milestones, what all these new buildings are, and how you can move from Little Hamlet to Megalopolis. If you have any pressing questions about the game, leave a comment below. Let me know. I'm glad to help out. I also stream Cities Skylines over on Twitch at twitch.tv/ToadieYPQ. And I think I'm pretty good at explaining things like this in their simplest form. Give the video a thumbs up if you thought it was helpful. Subscribe if you want to see more Cities Skylines content. And I can't wait to move on to part 2. Until then, guys, I will catch you next time.